With the end of the current season of anime, I'm kind of going through and talking about different shows back to back, just pumping out a video for each show that I've watched by doing a sort of short review, kind of my thoughts on the whole situation and kind of what's going on with that show. So, this time around, I'm going to be talking about Sakamoto Days. Now, basically, just to kind of give you a bit of a rundown on what Sakamoto Days is, basically, we have our main characters here in this promotional art, which I will click on just to kind of okay, maybe it didn't really zoom in as much as I would have liked it to. So basically, we have our main character, Sakamoto Taro, who is basically the kind of the best hitman in the world and part of a underground group called the Order, among some of the best assassins in the world, and keeps assassins. They're kind of like the police, but for assassins in the underground, and so you do not want to mess with this guy. But basically, he goes shopping at a keeping in mind that this is also partly like a parody comedy type of show, well, not parody, more comedy-ish action show. And so he goes shopping at a convenience store one day, sees this woman behind the counter, immediately falls in love, gets married to her, has a kid, and this is all basically explained within a single page of the manga, which I love. And basically that just kind of is like his story. So, and then he just gains weight and is fat. But even though he's fat, and he doesn't say much, he is still someone you do not want to mess with. And so now we've got other characters kind of joining the... basically, he now runs a convenience store called Sakamoto, and other characters join in, like on the on the right here we have Shin and Esper, who can read people's minds, and he joins, I think, first of the lot. He tries to kill Sakamoto, but the thing is that he used to work with Sakamoto back in the day, and so ultimately Sakamoto does not only manage to beat him as its own game of him trying to kill Sakamoto, but also able to free him from the underworld, to the point where Shin then joins as an employee of the Sakamoto convenience store, basically. And it's just an incredibly fun show. The action is great. I think if you've read the manga, you will basically have a great time watching the show, because it's basically a really good animated recreation of some of those scenes. It's not like... I feel like the action does seem a lot better in the manga, but still, like, the anime does a great adaptation, in my opinion. Now, the story is something that you probably shouldn't put too much stake in overall. Yeah, there are some really good or somewhat serious elements at times, but this is first and foremost kind of basically a comedy show of a man trying to hide the fact that he still does some assassination work, not really, kind of, in self-defense of people coming after him, his family, the fact that he's got a bounty on his head, the fact that people want him dead, and the fact that now you've got these sort of interesting characters that are joining the fray that either know martial arts, once were known as assassins, or want to become assassins in the future, both in terms of all of their character quirks and just who they are as those characters in the series. And while that's great and all, this season that we got here was only 11 episodes long, and unfortunately, as with all stories, the basic thing that you need is a beginning and a middle and an end. Unfortunately, all we got here was a beginning and a beginning of the middle, but no end in sight. So unfortunately, there are some things that need to be considered when you look at a show that is clearly like the beginning of something, but isn't a fully developed product given to you with everything in store, because keeping in mind that the manga is still going, that being the first thing. But also the second thing you might have noticed, and this was actually announced before this first season actually even started, or this first cour, I should say, because down here it says related entries, sequel, Sakamoto Days Part 2. So this is actually Part 1 of the first season of Sakamoto Days' anime adaptation, and we are in fact later on this year going to get Part 2 of the same season. So I am kind of a little bit befuddled on how I'm going to handle rating the season. Basically, what I'm going to do is, rather than talk about both part 1 and part 2 together, which is generally how you rate a show, I'm only going to be talking about the first this first 11 episodes. I think part 2, I don't know how many episodes that's going to be. I don't think it's been announced. Yeah, it has not. So I'm only going to be talking about the sort of first 11 episodes, just to kind of give you some idea on my thoughts on it. And like I said, I like the animation, I like the art style, I like the action. I think that there's a lot of good stuff happening here. And like I said, the story is a very fun time and not something that generally should be taken all that seriously. And in fact, compared to say something like, I don't know what order I'm going to be releasing the videos in, but I'm pretty sure I'm going to be putting out the Blue Exorcist review before this one. But basically, Blue Exorcist had a bunch of characters that are almost completely unlikable, except for one, who was Shiro. He was the only likable character. In Sakamoto Days, basically every character is likable. I have not yet seen a character I do not like. Even the assassins that come after Sakamoto, those guys have their own individual quirks, and sure, quirks could be seen as like a shorthand for trying to make characters feel unique and different to some extent, but you do need some sort of differentiating factor beyond how those characters look, both in terms of body type, body style, colors of hair, attitudes, backstory. Like the hard-boiled guy, for example, he had like such an incredibly stupid backstory that it actually made him a much more likable character in the end. So there's a lot of different things that we can kind of look at and try to take from the show, the characters and whatever have you. But in the end, I just had a great time with everything that was presented to me, not just in relation to how much was or currently adapted, but just the whole package, from beginning, basically throughout the 11 episodes. I was going to say beginning, middle, and end, but the problem is that there isn't really an end, given that there is a second part to the same season. So just only talking about the 11 episodes, had a fun time with that particular package. So with all that being said, I think I'm happy to give the show an 8 out of 10 on my anime list. I do think this is a very good / great show. I think that this is an incredibly fun time, and if I were to see someone get into anime for the first time, I feel like this would be a great recommendation. The only question I would ask them would be do you like a little bit of comedy and a little bit of action in your show? If you do, this is a great recommendation. I feel like there's a lot of shonen manga that do deserve to be recommended to newer people who do start watching anime. And back in the day, it used to be, the Bleach, Naruto, One Piece, stuff like that. But now we have other shows, other shonen franchises that we can recommend, like now Sakamoto Days, for example. So I think that this is in fact a great show and a great recommendation for people who want to start getting into anime and actually wanting to watch shows within the medium that don't detract from the experience of watching the show. And I say detract from the experience because people can find various things completely weird. This is very much this is a show that is not just enjoyable by people who watch anime, but also people who are normies as well. And that's kind of why I think that it is a good recommendation in that sense. But with all of that being said, however, let me know what you guys think about all of this in the comments below, and also your thoughts on Sakamoto Days if you've actually seen it. But with all that being said and done, I do upload every day, so I'll see you guys tomorrow.